I'm a trans person. Nazis are not great.
I've met trans Nazis. You could be one. Have you considered a switch?
No, never.
Really?
Nazis are terrible people.
Wait, they like genocide. You like genocide.
I do not like genocide. Genocide is very bad.
Curious, and yet the evidence shows otherwise. Really makes you think.
Not really evidence. It's just literally saying genocide bad in a pleady emoji.
The point that I'm trying to make to my poor beleaguered audience is that North Korea is a buffer state. It's the same thing that Soviet Union did with the Warsaw Pact.
North Korea is not a buffer state. Vaush is wrong. He is absolutely wrong about Asian politics, and he needs to stop talking about
I'll add another
Asian
one on. Also, Mel is xenophobic, okay? Mel is anti-Korean. Because anybody who implicitly defends the political legitimacy of North Korea is somebody who despises the people who live there.
How am I anti-Korean if I'm Korean, Vaush?
Any truism? Wait, how am I anti-Korean if I'm Korean? Did I Candace Owens, can we get a round of applause for this wonderful brain in chat? Please. You kidding me right now? Are you fucking with me, Mel?
So I'm Candace Owens. I'm a liberal.
You don't understand. You can't fathom.
I'm a red fash. Like, you're just using words, Vaush. Like,
yeah, I know you struggle with them, but hey.
You know what? You're someone who has always said that you are intellectually honest, and I was really hoping to have that with you, but for some reason it just evolved into ad homs, and I'm just kind of disappointed because I
looked at your Twitter and I asked you direct questions you didn't want to answer. And personally, I knew that you were anti-Uyghur Muslim. I didn't know you were anti-Korean people. That's really disgusting.
Why would I be anti-Korean when I'm Korean?
I hate them.
I hate.
You don't know anything about them. You're okay with geopolitical influence being exerted over them.
My own people. I was born in Korea.
Damn. Wow, that's super vicious then. Gotta chill with that, okay? These people say I hate white people, but gotta calm down with that.
This is a real good look for you, Vaush.
It's inconceivable to me that A, I could have a conversation with you and feel as though I'd done poorly, or B, that any of these sycophants who'd consider you a victor in this conversation could have had their mind changed through any behavior.
I'm not trying to be a winner or a loser here, Vaush. That's silly.
You don't have to try to be a loser, Mel. It just comes naturally.
Socialism isn't about winning or losing. Socialism is about building community and getting us to the glorious revolution.
Socialism is about the proletariat winning over people like you, state capitalist Mel.
Yes, I love state capitalism, apparently, according to you.
I don't know why repeating my correct statements back to me is like a zinger.
It's not correct, but fine.
All right. So we have now acknowledged that the Glorious People's Republic of the Democratic State of North Korea is actually a vassal state for China that they use to avoid direct military
They're not
imposition.
A vassal. I mean, if you're going to keep lying to your audience, you can keep lying to your audience, and that's fine. People will know that you're lying.
Doesn't China have border skirmishes with India from time to time? Wait, on the left side of this map, it literally has lines of control. Here's an India-claimed territory. Wait, how many thousands of square miles is this?
Wait, is he talking about Kashmir and doesn't know it? Uh-oh.
Well, India and China have been ruling over this particular part of...
Oh, no. This is the, wait. Why are people saying no? There are 6 disputed territories up here. I don't remember the names of them, but 2 in the northeast are owned by China, 2 in the west are owned by Pakistan, and then 2 in the south are owned by India. It's called Aksi Chin. Yeah, so this is the Kashmir area. No? It is. Hold on. It's one of the territories bordering them.
Of the subcontinent for about 2,000 years. It's a very, very old conflict.
Damn. That's pretty crazy. Well,
that's what I'm saying. A lot of these conflicts that are happening in Asia historically
have nothing
some
to
of
do
them
with
are-
geopolitics and are actually because of ancient tradition? Is that what we're getting
No,
at
no,
right now?
no. It's a combination of both actually, and that's why like that was the thing that I was trying to
There's
drive
no
at.
such thing as ancient tradition when it comes to geopolitics. Countries do what's in their best
There's
interest.
generational trauma that those people remember,
These
right?
are
So like
I don't know. I don't know what any of these. I guess Vaush I think is more correct here when it's geopolitics. My understanding is that the whole one of the fucky things about that region was the way that the way that Great Britain basically divvied it up. It was my understanding for why there's like so much dispute around some of these territories north of India. I don't know if it's like a generational conflict thing, but or like a generational, like they feel bad and that's why they fight or whatever. Like, seems like kind of geopolitical, but
they're people.
Okay, wait,
They're
hold
not-
on. Was it the
they're
American
Jews.
invasion of Iraq geopolitical?
It was a lot of things. It wasn't just geopolitical. It's not all geopolitics.
What other explanatory variables?
Western hegemony.
I think technically they divided themselves up after independence. I think they negotiated the British themselves. India wants territory that belonged to the British Raj. China wants the extent of its imperial borders. Doesn't go back thousands of years. My understanding is that the people in the Kashmir region don't necessarily identify as Indian. That those people there don't really want to be part of India. I don't know if they necessarily want to be part of Pakistan, but I'm almost positive they don't want to, or they don't want to be part of India. That's like not their that is not their prerogative, which is why they have so much like local resistance there against India, and why India used to have laws specially crafted to keep Indians out of that region, was because the people in that region are so upset about India asserting more control or autonomy over that region, or removing autonomy of that region.
It's obvious.
That
like
Western hegemony is geopolitics.
Yes, it is. Western hegemony is 100% geopolitics.
Yeah, so it's geopolitics.
But geopolitics is such a broad brush.
The fact that it's broad means it encompasses everything. Yeah.
But
It's
you're using
literally
it as a
politics,
but you're using it.
geographic.
It's okay. But you're using the problem is you're using it as a catch-all term.
Yeah, to describe states acting in their own interest for the most
It's
part.
not just states, though. You're reducing it down to just a state apparatus. It's not just the state. It is also the actors within the state. The state actors are things you have to be accounted for. You can't
And
just
they act
assume that
geopolitically.
No, they don't. Not
American
every
support for
self-interest-
Israel, is that geopolitical?
Not every
Is
interest
anything
is tied to
geopolitical? Does that
politics.
word mean anything?
A lot of things that are tied to Israel are also with Zionism and religion. It's not just
That's geopolitical.
No, it's not.
Yes,
Not
it is.
all-
Zionism literally describes the
Oh, Vaush is copying my take here to leave religion. So basically, arguments I've made in the past that I still largely stand beside. I think it's good. Is that like I think that framing these as religious conflicts does a lot of damage. I think looking at them as geopolitical conflicts is a lot more illuminating to figuring out like why people act the way they do, and then gets you away from really stupid conversations about saying like, oh, well, it's just because of a religion that this is happening. When usually that you're missing like 90% of the conversation if you assume that to be true.
support of a state. How can that not be geopolitical?
Zionism wasn't just about a state. It was about a return to a different era. It was about returning people to a land. It wasn't just a
And
state.
the land, they have it now. It's called Israel. And Zionism means a Zionist is a person who defends the state of Israel.
No, a Zionist is someone that supported a very specific movement. And so now Zionism as today is just someone that generally supports Israel. That's how we view it now.
That's what
but
I
it's
just said.
That's not what the movement was focused on. Because you said that's what created Israel. And I'm like, well, that's not what created Israel. Israel wasn't just like Israel, for all intents and purposes, is a military base. We all know that. It's an apartheid state.
Israel's a military.
Why would Mel say this? I'm getting so mad about him about Vaush saying this about South Korea. Why would Mel do this?
base, but South Korea isn't? You know you all had a dictatorship on our account for a while until recently, right? We meddled very hard in South Korean affairs. We were very invested in making sure that you all were amicable military partners through the Cold War.
But the dictatorship was never owned by the United States. It was actually done independently by the Korean Central Intelligence Agency and Japanese fascists. But that wasn't the United States directly.
Oh, I
There's a
see. Wait, does America get to wipe their hands clean of every coup and every junta that takes place in countries we don't directly invade?
No, I'm just being factually correct here. Like, I'm not saying that you're wrong.
We
I'm
back
just saying
the
like
bad guy.
That's what happened. I'm not trying to win a dunk. I'm not trying
We
to dunk
backed
on
him.
you or say that you're right or wrong.
promised him
but I'm just-
resources. We supported him. We wanted a dictator because South Korea was our military base and North Korea was China's military base. Your country, as are half the countries on Earth, were just used in a proxy war between us and the communist bloc. That's what the Cold War was.
Cold War wasn't just buffer states. It was actually subject.
What do you think NATO and the Warsaw Pact were? It was all about buffer states. That's a Cold War. We fight via proxies.
The Warsaw Pact was a buffer state, but not every. Okay, so not every. So a lot of states become buffer states as things happen geopolitically. A lot of states become buffer states, but a lot of those states were actually not supposed to be. They were supposed to be independently held. Like that was the big controversy with the Soviet Union and the whole like the original definition of Tankie or whatever, like the Czech like Prague Spring and stuff. Originally, they were supposed to be independent countries.
I just can't believe you're like more of an American chauvinist than I am. You're like, no, America didn't have anything to do with what happened to South Korea. That was we did that to ourselves.
I'm not being chauvinist. I'm telling you what happened. America is still largely influencing Korea, but there's certain parts where it did and certain parts where it didn't. The Japanese fascists had probably more of an influence in South Korea left over after the Korean War than America did. And after America,
what is
definitely
the strongest
did,
influence
America
in North Korea?
America definitely put those people in power, but they definitely walked away, and they just used. I would argue that Korea was more used economically by the United States than they were used militarily. Actually, the South Korea has a massively bigger, has a higher troop presence on the DMZ than the United States. But
yeah, because that's your proxy war. But I guarantee you, by the way, that if somehow a Chinese North Korean coalition started invading South Korea, we would be at your doorstep in 30 seconds because we want to keep our military bases there. Who do you think the strongest influence is in North Korea? America's the strongest influence in South Korea now, by far. So what about North Korea?
What do you mean? I mean, North Korea is supported by China, but like we don't even know if China would even support them if anything happened. That's like a huge fucking what if. Like we have no idea.
They literally invaded Korea to keep us from taking Pyongyang.
They didn't invade Korea. They actually supported the North at the same time. They didn't invade anything.
Well, one man's supporting the North is another man's fighting against the South. So that's really a matter of perspective. They sent troops into the country and they used those troops to fight against our proxy troops, and then they did it to hold the DMC.
Do you know how far they pushed into the South, right?
They got pretty far, didn't they? Before we kicked them back?
They got all the way to Busan. That's why they call it the Busan perimeter.
Yeah, and then we dabbed on them.
Well, it was the invasion at Incheon, and it was a lot more.
It's very complicated, the actual story of the Korean War. But eventually we did dab on them.
Well, we didn't actually. It was a bloody fucking stalemate. We didn't dab on anybody. Like, it was a slugfest. Like, when we pushed them, I believe, 40-something miles north of the current 38th parallel. And the United States was not winning. But the North wasn't winning either, because actually after the United States pushed into the war, China pulled their troops back. And the reason why China pulled their troops back is because the United States had a plan that was in the works, that there was a possibility that they were going to nuke Manchuria or nuke like the border between like China and the DPRK, like even after the retreat, to solidify China never entering the conflict again.
I'm glad nobody dropped nukes.
And cutting off North Korea. That was the original plan, and the war ended up going to an armistice because the amount of civilian deaths that were done on the DPRK were like massive, right? Like America dropped like more bombs than the entire than World War II in its entirety just on the DPRK. Anti-communist hit squads like brought out like Korean civilians that were taking food from North Korean soldiers or Chinese soldiers or even like regular Koreans. And they were executed for just taking food. Like, it was a really brutal conflict where lots of people on both sides of the peninsula died.
And now that suffering gets to be lived out every single day of the lives of every single citizen of North Korea.
It's not, suffering still happens in the South. Like, that war separated families. It changed the cultural landscape of both countries.
Do you think
can't
the
just talk
suffering
about
on the North and the South are comparable?
I'm not saying they're not comparable. I'm saying that you're missing that point.